I'm Diego Cordovez.
Adam Schoenfeld.
Welcome to The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. Here we have a very impressive young man named David Sands.
Doc Sands online.
And he really holds an important record, which is that he's won 8 of the major Sunday tournaments, which is very impressive. And he won them all in a pretty short, concentrated period of time. But he also made his mark at the World Series and is transitioning over to the live game and the live tournaments. So it should be very interesting. So the thing that I thought was pretty good as far as marketing goes is that at the World Series this year, Doyles Room kind of pitted 4 very successful young guys against each other with a points formula, and whoever did the best over the course of the World Series would get membership in the
Brunson 10.
The Brunson 10, and get sponsored, which is a big deal, and which everyone is striving for. I mean, what kind of pressure did that put on you? Was that some extra dosage?
Well, I mean, it was a really fun competition. I agree. The result worked out the way they wanted it to in terms of branding. I thought it definitely generated a lot of interest. I knew it was going to be a tough competition from the outset, and although there was a little bit of added pressure, one of the things that was nice is I was competing against 4 great players or 3 other great players. So I knew going in that even if I didn't come out victorious, that I would have lost to someone who was a really good poker player. And at the same time, it was also it was a public competition, so I obviously wanted to win, being a super competitive person that I am. I jumped out to a really strong start. I had a good lead just a couple weeks in because I had 2 deep runs in a 1500 and 2 different 1500s. I finished in the top 18 in both, so I had a pretty good lead initially. But then Dan obviously came back and won the 25K.
Yeah, just dusted off the 25K.
Yeah, no problem.
Some pressure.
Yeah.
Who, Faraz Jaka?
Yeah, Faraz Jaka and Michael Martin. So
Faraz Jaka got a little bit of a roll at some point.
Yeah, he went pretty deep in I think it was the 5K heads up tournament. And I think he finished in like the top 8 or top 4 or something. So he had like a nice 50 or 60K cash too, and also accumulated some points. But one thing that I actually didn't realize going in is that I should have reread the contract that we signed more closely. But it said that if anyone wins a bracelet, they get an automatic spot. So I actually was kind of anti-sweating DJK, even though I'm friends with him, going into the 25K final table, because based on pure points, if he got top 3, then he would have beat me out. But fortunately, he ended up winning the thing, so he got the guaranteed spot, and I ended up technically winning the competition on points, and we both got a spot on the team. So it ended up working out well in the end, for sure.
Were you concerned at all that the contest would play with your mind and cause you to do things differently than you normally do?
I mean, I guess I wasn't, because the truth is I don't think anyone could ever put more pressure on me than I just do on my own. Like, I expect myself to play better than everybody else. I expect myself to learn from my mistakes and not make the same mistakes again. And I expect myself to play as close to perfectly as I can in every situation. So, when you kind of go into each poker tournament with that attitude that you're gonna you're playing for yourself, then there's really nothing else that can add to the amount of pressure that you're already feeling.
But there could be situations, though, where you're in a tournament, you're deep. Of course, all the money's at the top, but the points are not.
Absolutely.
The points are a little more linear, and you're in a close race. So it's kind of like when you have a last longer bet, you don't want it messing with your mind. And
that's 100% true. I think that's different than feeling like an added bit of pressure. That's just weighing in different factors when figuring out how to take an optimal line in a specific spot.
What the value
is. There's different math. It's like not ICM you have to consider.
I mean, that's just something that poker players have to do basically every time they play a tournament. There are a multitude of different factors that weigh into making every decision at a poker table, and so it's just basically adding strength to one set of factors and reducing the strength when you're basically making a calculation on the fly, for trade-offs. And I guess something that helped me do that is I play a lot of satellites online, like some of the $2K and $700 sit-and-go satellites, and those aren't traditional ICM calculations because the payouts differ in every one. So sometimes it'll be like a 15K seat to the top 5 people, and then 6th place will get 2K, or maybe 6th place will get 6K, 7th place will get 3K. So, as someone who plays those satellites pretty frequently, I think I'm kind of accustomed to, just adapting how my mind calculates those different trade-offs.
How about just the issue of playing a lot of tournaments? Because one thing is, the World Series is super grueling.
Yeah.
And you really can get burned out. Some of these guys who've done bracelet bets
Absolutely.
have found that it's
a huge
negative. Because I remember a couple of years ago, Phil Ivey got in a bracelet bet, and he's a guy who's not used to playing tons of tournaments, even though he has a lot of stamina and cash games. and by the last tournaments, he looked like he was.
Yeah, that's definitely a good
Near
point.
death.
And it definitely took a toll on me, just the grind. One thing that I'm going to have to think about for this coming World Series is both this past year and the year before, I played 0 of the 5K tournaments in the World Series because I day 2 to 1500 or a 1K from the day before. So I think from a pure value perspective, I might actually be costing myself value, because even though these 3K and 2K person fields have a lot of value and a lot of dead money, I think that I have a pretty good edge in a 700 person 5K field too.
Right.
So one of the things that I didn't realize was a trade-off at the time, but definitely in hindsight might have cost me some value, was the fact that I didn't get to play any of those tournaments because I was playing every 1K and every 1500, trying to accumulate points because of that. So that's definitely something I'm going to think about for this year. I'm probably going to skip every 1K that's the day before 1500, or that's the day before 5K, and also some of the 1500s. But just in terms of being burnt out, I definitely gave it all I had during that World Series. I always go back to Montana, which is where I went to high school, and my parents live in the winter after the World Series wraps up to kind of decompress. So I went back and just played a golf tournament with my dad, which I actually ended up winning, which was a really fun victory for the two of us.
So you just win tournaments no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I was running hot definitely in that time, so we had no business winning that tournament either. But so I just go back for 1 or 2 weeks and just kind of decompress and clear my head. But the World Series was definitely a grind. I basically mucked every online tournament. I think I played 1 or 2 Sundays the whole series, so definitely is a grind.
David, I'm sorry. I read that you went from having a job in the period of a year, and you won. I don't know if you won all 8 of your Sunday majors then, but you won several.
Yeah, it was a crazy
Just
year.
walk us through how that happened.
Well, I don't know how far back you want me to take you, but I'll go back to the point. I guess when I graduated college, I went to a private school in upstate New York, and I did really well in school. I graduated summa cum laude in the top 2% of my class, and I was also making quite a bit of money playing poker. So I think I was kind of used to the dynamic between being pulled between like a traditional job or like a traditional education and playing poker. And when I graduated, I moved out to Vegas and decided I was going to play poker full time. But I didn't really know anybody in the poker community because at school I was just basically the only person that played competitively or professionally. And
Now
so
moving out to Vegas, thinking of playing some live poker also, or just
I was.
still
Well, I had
mostly
had
online?
a decent World Series my first summer. I just got out to Vegas for like 3 weeks, and I thought I had a pretty good understanding of the game well enough to do well live. So I just kind of wanted to move out there and just kind of get a little bit more in touch with the game and be around some better players, because at the time I didn't really know anybody in the community. And so that was the toughest part about moving out to Vegas initially. I just literally knew no one in the poker community, and so I was basically just living alone, grinding poker tournaments, and it wasn't a very fun lifestyle. I
That
didn't
could be
enjoy it
lonely,
so
right?
much. Yeah, so I did that for about 7 months, and I decided that I wanted to go back to having a real job. So I moved to San Francisco, California, and I had a job at an internet marketing firm in Palo Alto, which is the job that you mentioned that I had for a little over a year. And so I was just basically working 50 or 60 hours a week at this job. That in terms of a 9-to-5 job, it was a great job. It was a great opportunity. But then on Sunday, I just kept hitting 80, 90, $250,000 scores. So I think I won 6 of the 8 majors during that stretch that I had a
Only
job.
6.
Yeah.
So it was really tough
Tremendous.
because I would literally play till 4 or 5 in the morning, hit a 5 or 6 figure score, and have to go back and work the next day. So even though I really liked my job, just at the end of the day, the trade-off in terms of enjoyment and the amount of money I was making wasn't there. So in February of 2008, I put in my 2 weeks notice and moved on, started playing full-time.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. And it's been very interesting talking to David Sands. So we're going to have him back next week and continue talking about his online and live success.